We asked Steve Hackett if he had a real sense of freedom once he left Genesis. I'm John Beaudin from Rock History Music. Under a Mediterranean Sky is a brand new album. There'll be links in the description where you can pick up the album right now on Steve Hackett's website. Steve, was there a sort of when you started going solo, was there a part of you that went, look at this big kitchen, wow, what can I do? Well, how did you feel?
Going solo, you mean, or doing my first solo album?
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, I love doing solo work. I had to write a lot more material to do a solo album. And it's a bit like turning on a tap. Once you've turned on that tap and you're forcing yourself to come up with as many ideas as possible, that's fine. Unfortunately, when you're in a group, suddenly you can't turn off that tap and you've got masses of ideas for everybody. Probably too many ideas. So Genesis is a very strange band. They tend to, even now today, they tend to sort of compliment me privately and denounce me publicly. It's the way of the competitive, otherwise known as the Spanish Inquisition, masquerading as the band Genesis. What can I tell you?
You know, it's interesting. If we were talking about like an ex-wife or something, I mean, my ex-wife and I get along really well. My current wife and my ex-wife, they love each other. They really have a lot of respect. But no one goes around from my days in the 80s and comes up to me and says, let's talk about your ex-wife. You know, it's interesting that you have this body of work with this band. And I mean, you're a good sport about it, and I appreciate that, and everyone does, that you're willing to talk about that. But on the other hand, unlike an ex-wife, it says something about what you created back then as a fairly young man. So that's kind of nice. Yeah.
Well, I think the brain children are there. If you're talking about the marriage analogy, we produced a number of brain children together, and it's surprising, you know, they started out with legs, some of those ideas, and now they've sprouted wings. Those things have not just survived, but kind of gone ballistic ever since they were first done. Those early albums that weren't necessarily huge hits in their day keep selling, and I can't complain about that. I'm very proud of a lot of that work, and I revisited it live and re-recorded it with a couple of revisited albums, and luckily I've had guys on those albums who've been extraordinarily gifted as well. So it's a body of work to be proud of, but at the same time, one must move on, record new work, because keeping the museum doors open and, you know, wheeling out the mummies in their bejeweled crates and coffins is only part of what I do. I love bringing those favourites, and I'm still proud of them. It's great. It's a great mummy, but a mummy it's preserved, you know, in formaldehyde and all the rest, and in memory and all that, and wonderful. But I like to do other stuff. I like to do stuff that's technically demanding, work that's approaching virtuosity, and I think that's the main difference between me and the way Genesis went. I think that Genesis deliberately simplified in order to be accessible and to play a certain game that was going to be accessible and would be MTV and radio friendly, whereas I wanted to do challenging work that was going to inspire classical people, jazz people. It was going to touch on so many different kinds of things. I didn't want to narrow the focus. I mean, it seemed to me that in the late 70s, when Fleetwood Mac did Rumours, I realised it was a great album, but the focus was very much on, let's not experiment too much, let's keep it to, it's still boy meets girl songs, but, you know, you have to say, where's the challenge? That's the thing. I think that Fleetwood Mac in the early days was, by the time of Oh Well with Peter Green, the late great Peter Green, as they say themselves, you know, Peter Green was, if not the greatest British guitarist, he was certainly the equal in his heyday of Eric Clapton, and they were both leading the charge, both working for John Mayall. What an incredible loss that is, as well as the loss of the late great Eddie Van Halen, of course.
Third song, by the way, has a sort of celebratory feel to me.
Yeah, it is. I think, you know, I'm thinking that it celebrates the wonderful things that are under the sun there. I mean, it's hard not to think of the antiquities in Egypt. And it's a boring word, antiquity, but it looks like it was painted yesterday. They've just got the set ready for us. And I don't know anyone who visited, who did that trip up the Nile, who is not absolutely blown away by the way the stuff looks. And it's thousands of years old, but it's sandstone, toughened by wind and rain. And that's the reason why that stuff is still standing there. And it looks like it was painted yesterday. It's just phenomenal. I mean, talk about wonders of the world. And it's hugely inspiring musically for me. I always have my notebook out whenever I've been to Egypt. And of course, I got to visit in Jordan, Petra. So I've done my kind of Indiana Jones trips. And these places, they linger. And they're crying out to be described musically. So, it's my way of filming it. Well, I mean, we did a couple of videos for these tracks, and some of it is actually filmed in situ. I just can't describe it. I mean, just standing right next to the Sphinx, for instance. And I've seen it on a sunny day, and I've seen it with clouds. It's just an extraordinary thing. And so I've got one eye on the Sphinx, and I've got my notebook out. And I can't stop writing. I just cannot stop, because you think this has got to be the most exotic structure on the face of the earth, and it has to be described in musical notes. So I was there thinking about that, and I was also thinking about some of the landscaping that you hear in Grieg's music. Norwegian composer, of course. Wonderful stuff where sometimes right at the end of a piece you think it's going to finish, and he takes his time lingering over the last few chords, and we did that with Sirocco, and we were having a hell of a time trying to make that work with a click track. Roger King was saying to me, well, just how slow do you want this? And I said, slow, and slower, as the picture seems to recede into the distance, but the effect of it is still on you. So it's doing things that orchestras can do that rock bands struggle to do, because a rock band, there's the urgency. Oh, get on with it. But I guess it's also a reflection of my seniority. No longer a spring chicken.
Under a Mediterranean Sky is the brand new Steve Hackett album. You can order it on his website. There'll be links in the description of this video. Make sure you comment on our videos, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos. I'm John Beaudin. This is Rocky Street Music.